upgrade!
We finally have the final neon weapon for this event, the Noble Launcher. But will it live up to the hype of the Mercury LMG? Is it just as OP of a weapon as that was? It's certainly one of the weirdest and most unique launchers I've seen in the game. But today, we'll be doing a quick review and showing some gameplay of the brand new Noble Launcher. How's it going, guys? My name is Checker and welcome to today's video. Like I just said, we'll be reviewing the brand new Noble Launcher, putting it through its paces and figuring out, is it really worth it? After all, just like the Neon Sniper and the Mercury LMG, this weapon will set you back 2,000 gold to purchase. The Neon Sniper Rifle is really just kind of meh, kind of good in some situations, but overall just kind of meh. The Mercury LMG was a very nice weapon. I did thoroughly enjoy that weapon. But how about the Noble Launcher? Well, unfortunately, it kind of fits in the same category as the Neon Sniper. It's kind of meh. Before we go and take a look at the pros and cons of this weapon, let's first take a look at the perks. And keep in mind, the perks on this weapon will be static, so every single Noble Launcher will have the same exact perks. But up first, we have 25% reload speed, 21% fire rate, 20% damage, 10% weapon damage, causes affliction for 6 seconds, and then 30% damage to afflicted targets. I think this is the first time Epic has ever given us a weapon that not only causes affliction, but also does more damage to afflicted targets. Essentially, what that means is if you shoot them once, you will cause affliction to that target. Shooting them again will then cause another 30% damage to that afflicted target. Most of the time, those are two perks that go very, very well together. However, for rocket launchers or just explosive weapons in general, it's not really something that's necessary. But we have Launcher, Neon, heavy weapon that fires a wave of piercing energy. It can be fired normally for a narrow half tile wide pulse or charged for a 1 tile or 1.5 tile wide blast. Deals energy damage, which is fairly effective against all types of elemental enemies. And keep in mind that this weapon has a durability of 30, which equated for me at least to be 40 uncharged shots and then 30 completely charged up shots. So 40 when just clicking the mouse, and then 30 when holding down the mouse and then releasing once it was fully charged. So what are the pros of this weapon? Well, the durability is just pretty crazy. 40 shots for the lowest charge and 30 shots for the highest charge is pretty dang good. But other than that, the only real pro for this weapon is that it is extremely good for a certain situation. That situation is, of course, when you have a large number of husks in front of you and you can take them all out with one little blast. That will require you to charge up the weapon first and not have anything up in your face, but overall it is extremely good for doing that. Moving on to the cons though, there's one really major con about this weapon, and it happens to be the second pro of this weapon. This weapon is extremely good for doing one little thing: clearing out a large group of husks somewhat in front of you. And I say somewhat in front of you because you have to have at least some sort of a gap in between you and the husks. Otherwise they're just up in your face, and this weapon is just way too slow, way too clumsy to use at point blank range. So if you can have the proper distance and the proper amount of husks in front of you, this can be a fairly effective weapon. Especially, let's say if you had like a smasher in front of you and like a bunch of other little husks around him, this would be a very good weapon for that purpose, but unfortunately that is a very specific purpose. This weapon, like I said, is terrible at point blank. It is clumsy, it is slow. If you want to hit anything on the move, you will have to be very good at aiming with this weapon because the projectile is just so incredibly slow, and that just kind of sums up the whole weapon. Slow, clumsy, useful for certain situations, but most of the time not useful at all. One of the nice things about having, let's say, something like a bazooka is that you always have that option to go and spam the floor below you in case you were getting swarmed. But with the Noble Launcher, you simply cannot do it. It's not really an explosive weapon, it's just kind of a weird weapon. But that's kind of how event weapons seem to work out. They're kind of weird, they're kind of unique. A few of them, a small handful of them, will be good weapons that you use throughout the game, but most of them are just a little fad. You'll use them in the event and then move on to the next event weapons once the next event starts. And the Noble Launcher, like many event weapons, is just kind of a fad. If you choose to get it, you'll probably use it for a little bit and then eventually just kind of move on. So overall, do I recommend the Noble Launcher? This is really hard to say. It's kind of cool to have, it's kind of fun to use. It's not very practical, not always very effective. In certain circumstances, it can be extremely effective. However, all other explosive weapons are going to be just as effective in that circumstance. Which again requires you to have a ton of husks in front of you where you have time to charge up the weapon. So overall, I cannot recommend this weapon unless you just want to collect it just to have it. Maybe you have 10,000 seasonal gold and you just want to spend some. Go for it then. But if you don't have a ton of seasonal gold saved up, I honestly would say save it for something else. This weapon is probably not worth your time. Anyway though guys, thanks for watching today's video. What do you guys think of the Noble Launcher? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Let me know down below. But thanks guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys next time for some Roblox. Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be the death of my channel.